breaking news from CBS 17 News.
Now at 11, tragedy in the nation's capital. 67 people are dead after American Airlines plane and a Black Hawk helicopter collide midair. What we're learning from officials about the investigation tonight.
Plus, the recovery efforts continue for victims in the Potomac River tonight, where first responders are in their search.
Some of the victims have ties to North Carolina, including one of the flight attendants. Hear from his wife of 23 years about why he got into the job as she remembers his life.
Tonight, we're hearing from some of those who flew back from Reagan National Airport after that deadly crash Wednesday night. I'm CBS 17's Greg Funderburg. I'll have that story coming up.
And good evening, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Rod Carter.
And I'm Angela Taylor. We're going to get to the latest out of Washington, D.C. in just a moment. But first, let's start with Chief Meteorologist Wes Hohenstein with your forecast first. And the radar is a little active tonight, Wes.
It's going to be more so tomorrow. The month ends tomorrow, and it's going to go out with a bang. Windy, warm, with good rain chances. Tonight, the rain is north of the triangle, a little bit up in southern Virginia, up by the Virginia border. That's where it will stay tonight. But here's what we've got tomorrow. First, it's not going to start off cold, which is a lot different than where we've been the last couple of weeks. About 50 when you leave for work and school, near 70 by lunchtime, and we're dry all day as we head up to 72 with windy conditions. But as we get into Friday night, that's when we'll start to see the rain show up on the radar, moving in after 6 o'clock and really picking up late Friday night. And then the cold front comes through. We'll talk about what that does to your weekend coming up in less than 15 minutes.
Tonight, we continue to follow breaking news more than 24 hours after that deadly midair collision in Washington, D.C.
Here's what we know and the new information that we're learning tonight. 67 people died when an American Airlines plane and a Black Hawk helicopter, a military helicopter, hit each other. There are no survivors. There were 60 passengers, 4 crew members on board that plane, and 3 soldiers in the Black Hawk. A recovery operation is underway tonight. It's been all day long. Officials say that they have found 40 bodies so far.
We also know the NTSB is beginning its investigation into what happened. They hope to have a preliminary report ready within 30 days. We've also learned that several members of the figure skating community were on the plane returning from a developmental camp in Wichita, Kansas.
And within the past hour or so, we also learned that recovery teams are bringing a U.S. Coast Guard crane to the crash site to help reach victims who are in a section of that wreckage that divers just simply cannot get to. We also know one black box has been recovered, but it is unclear tonight which aircraft that is from. Last night's crash is the country's deadliest aviation disaster in more than 20 years.
Tonight, Andy Fox is at Ronald Reagan National Airport sharing President Trump's response.
Today we saw a divide. On one side, President Donald Trump, who says he wants answers now into what happened last night. And on the other side, the NTSB that says not so fast. We may have a preliminary report in 30 days.
Crash. This is alert 3. Crash. This is alert 3.
A day of mourning following this horrific crash between an Army helicopter and an American Airlines jetliner.
We'll find out how this disaster occurred and we'll ensure that nothing like this ever happens again.
64 killed on the plane, 3 on the chopper. It was President Trump who first raised the questions how the crash could have happened and who may be at fault.
The people in the helicopter should have seen where they were going. I can't imagine people with 20/20 vision not seeing, what's happening up there. Again, they shouldn't have been at the same height.
At their own news conference, the NTSB said they will hold comment until a preliminary report in about 30 days.
It's not that we don't have information. We do have information. We have data. We have substantial amounts of information. We need to verify information.
Today, our next door affiliate, WPRI in Rhode Island, caught up with a family of one of the crash victims, brokenhearted.
We created our family through adoption, so our 2 sons are adopted from South Korea. Spencer, who was on the flight, who was our oldest son, kind of just felt like a nightmare and was hoping I would wake up and it would be that.
It just so happens that U.S. Senator Tim Kaine from Virginia expressed concerns about this airport a year ago, concerned about the small airspace. He always feared that something bad would happen here, and last night it did. At Reagan National, I'm Andy Fox. Back to you.
And the 4 crew members killed in the crash are based out of Charlotte.
And we know at least one passenger has ties to North Carolina as well. Tonight, we're bringing you team coverage from here in the Triangle. Greg Funderburg and Mary Smith are out at RDU. But we're going to begin with CBS 17's Gilat Melamed, who joins us here in studio tonight. And Gilat, you're going to share some of what we know about one of the members on that crew.
Yeah, one of those crew members is flight attendant Ian Epstein. His wife of 23 years says he switched careers 5 years ago so he could see the world. You can tell from this photo just how happy Ian Epstein was to be a flight attendant.
People just loved him as a flight attendant.
Jody Epstein was married to Ian for more than 2 decades and says he was a jokester and liked to have fun doing announcements. She originally had concerns about him switching to a career in the skies.
I was so scared that this would be the outcome. And, you know, he looked at me and he said, I would rather die doing something that I love.
She says Ian lived in Charlotte. That's where his flight crew was based out of. The 4 crew members, the plane's 60 passengers, and 3 military members were killed as the American Airlines flight and an Army Black Hawk helicopter collided near Reagan National Airport.
You don't expect to ever get that phone call. And what's the chance out of 2 flight attendants in the entire world that he's on that flight?
Debbie says they have 2 adult children. Her last conversation with Ian was with their youngest daughter, who's getting married in 8 weeks. We're also learning one of the passengers is from North Carolina. Wendy Jo Schaefer lives in Charlotte and is a mother to 2 young children. She was returning home from a business trip and had a layover in D.C. In a statement, her family says, "We are devastated. Words cannot truly express what Wendy Jo meant as a daughter, a sister, a friend, a wife, and most importantly, a mother." The family is requesting privacy at this time. And friends of the Schaefer family created a GoFundMe describing her as a loving partner to her husband and a nurturing and joyful mother, saying her boys were her greatest pride and joy.
All right, thanks so much. We appreciate it. Reagan National Airport resumed service following that tragic crash that happened last night.
Yeah, our team coverage continues at RDU, where we find CBS 17's Greg Funderburg. And Greg, you spoke with travelers who returned home from Washington here to the Triangle.
Well, Angela, some of those travelers told me it was a somber day at Reagan National in Washington, D.C., but they told me they're just so thankful to be home safely. Rachel Quigley described her drive to Ronald Reagan National Airport Thursday as surreal.
And then driving to the airport today and driving past the pop-up tents and seeing the Coast Guards up and down, it weighs heavy on your heart.
Rachel isn't alone in feeling this way after the collision between an American Airlines plane and an Army Black Hawk helicopter.
I was a little nervous, yeah. Probably more so than usual, especially on the way in.
It's unfortunate, you know. It's a horrible thing that occurred.
As flights departed from the nation's capital, those returning to the Triangle reflected on their experience.
It was very solemn. Even thinking about taking off today on the plane, there wasn't a lot of chatter. It was very, very retrospective, very even respectful as you took off, and we were in the air looking down on, again, the boats and seeing the flashing lights.
And as the investigation continues, many passengers tell me they took to the sky with their minds on a higher power.
I prayed before we left D.C. I prayed when we hit turbulence on the way to here. It's just honestly leaning into it. My parents, they tell me to kind of just put my faith in God, and that's all I can do.
I just prayed and just left everything to God.
While several flights were canceled earlier today, some of those flights earlier this evening and also later tonight, they did make it safely here to RDU. Of course, we will continue to follow this story over the next days and weeks to come. Reporting live from RDU, Greg Funderburg, CBS 17 News.
All right, Greg, thank you.
All right, Greg, thank you so much. There's a big focus on if technology designed to alert pilots of potential collisions failed. CBS 17 investigative reporter Mary Smith continues our team coverage. She spoke with an airline pilot about the technology on these aircrafts.
The main system used on planes is TCAS. That's the Traffic Collision Avoidance System, but it operates differently at different altitudes.
Flight track radar shows the path the CRJ 700 American Eagle plane took Wednesday night before it collided with a Black Hawk helicopter. We asked airline pilot Ross Kaplan about collision avoidance systems and technology on commercial planes. He says the main tool used, the TCAS system.
All U.S. airline aircraft are equipped with it, although the capabilities may vary from aircraft to aircraft.
However, RA alerts, also known as resolution advisories to climb or descend, are inhibited at certain altitudes depending on the plane. And he says when a plane is below 500 feet, most TCAS systems will not give an audible traffic warning.
You could still see it on your screen. You could still see traffic around your own airplane. It just won't warn you about it because you should be focused on landing at that point.
But that's only if the other aircraft has a transponder. It's believed Wednesday the two aircraft were just a few hundred feet from the ground when they collided. Other than TCAS, Kaplan says the next big resource for pilots is air traffic control. He says air traffic controllers will give a command using the word immediately in urgent situations.
Mary Smith, CBS 17 News.
And right now, flights are being impacted here at home. While flights have resumed at Reagan National, some flights to and from the airport are canceled. There are 32 delays right now and 11 cancellations. Always a good reminder, just check your airline before you head out to the airport.
And tonight, Charlotte Douglas International Airport released a statement. It says, quote, "We join the aviation community in offering our heartfelt condolences to the families, friends, passengers, and colleagues affected by these devastating incidents. In times of profound loss, we are reminded that life is precious. Cherish who you love."
We'll continue, of course, to bring you updates throughout the evening, and you can also stay up to date 24/7 on any breaking news by downloading the free CBS 17 News app.
A battle at the state legislature about hurricane relief funding.
Why a group says they need more money, more than $200 million for help after Hurricane Matthew.
Plus, nearly $20,000 stolen from a Cary grocery store, while the owner says this isn't even her money.
And we're still tracking a little bit of rain out there tonight, but there's a lot of bitter rain coming tomorrow night. We'll walk you through the whole day, hour by hour, tell you what to expect then and what's going to happen after tomorrow night's cold front. That and your 10-day forecast right after this.